Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Gladiator, starring Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Oliver Reed, Richard Harris, Derek Jacobi, Trevor Morgan, and Jimon Hounsou, directed by Ridley Scott. Finally, I get to Gladiator right after all the bombastic movies that I've reviewed in the past, like, I don't know, a couple of months. And the only reason I held this one back till before Gladiator 2 came out was because this is the first of the movies, and I wanted to keep them close together, if that makes sense. So, is this as good as I remember? I've seen this movie, but not in theaters, though. I was a little too young when that movie came out in theaters, but I ended up watching it when it was new on DVD at the time. So, what do I think of it? Well, it might be the same as I think of it now. Let's see. Let's get into the movie and see what it's all about. It's 180 AD. A general named Maximus Decimus Meridius, played in a tremendous performance by Russell Crowe, leads in the Roman army into battle, while Emperor Marcus Aurelius, played by Richard Harris, who actually was a real man back in the history book days. But Maximus or any of the other characters were not, I believe, as most of them are fictional. But I haven't thought about it since high school. But the point is, Marcus watches the battle while Maximus fights with the Germanic barbarians. And the opening battle sequence was a hell of a lot of fun, while the score was amazing throughout, as there will be a favorite of mine later in the movie. And I'll point it out when I get there. And the sound is tremendous throughout the movie. Maximus fights in the battle and leads to victory against the Germanic barbarians. And the shots are terrific in this whole movie. I have to give credit to the cinematographer, John Mathieson. Forgive me if I said that wrong. As we get introduced to Lucilla, played by Connie Nielsen, and her brother Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix, as he wants their father Marcus to name him emperor and gets off the carriage and to ride his horse to Marcus. In the battlegrounds, while Maximus wants to get home to his wife and son Maximus is honored by his troops, and he and Commodus were old friends because he served his father for the longest time. And I'm going to just confess now, I took notes on the director's cut, and I've seen both versions at this point. And in the director's cut, we get the images of the wounded soldiers getting healed up by doctors and some kind, and after the opening battle sequences. And it makes sense, and the cinematography is the best thing about this movie, as the writing is much better than any of his recent stuff. That looks great, but tells a shit story. And not this movie, though, as this isn't one of the shit stories. Lucilla has eyes on Maximus while Commodus and Marcus celebrate the victory with the troops, and the next day comes. Commodus trains in sword while Marcus summons Maximus about how he became Caesar in the beginning of time and how he's dying, as Marcus wants to name Maximus as the emperor. And Maximus declines, as Marcus says Commodus will never rule, and that sounds cruel. But after seeing this movie so many times over the years, it makes sense, and the writing on this is spectacular. Maximus bumps into Lucilla, and I get the impression she's in love with him, despite he's married and despite they're only friends. And we get in the director's cut, she prays for him as she says she has nearly 8-year-old son named Lucius, played later by Spencer Treat Clark. And Maximus has the same thing, and he believes he won't be going home anytime soon. While Commodus approaches his father, as Marcus says to Commodus, "You will not be emperor." And he wants to give it to Maximus, and Commodus tears about how he wants to make him proud, and they eventually hug each other until Commodus chokes the life out of Marcus and kills him to death. And Marcus's dead body comes to Maximus's attention and wonders how he died, and Commodus lies his ass off. As he says there was no pain, and Commodus asks for Maximus' hand, and Maximus doesn't trust him, while Lucilla slaps Commodus, and at the end of it, kisses his hand and says, "Hail Caesar." And this is an easy plot to follow, as the editing is tightly edited. I think it's more better in the theatrical cut and then the director's cut. Maximus believes Commodus killed Marcus, and Commodus sends some men to arrest Maximus and kill him in the middle of the nowhere, as this person says his family will meet him in the afterlife. And Maximus fights back to go back to his family, but two things unfortunately do happen. One is two horses he has they will both be out of breath and die, and Commodus's guards kill Maximus's wife and son. And the score in this scene was fucking depressing, but it puts the movie in the right mood as Maximus falls to the ground after burying his wife and son and gets picked up to become a slave along with someone who befriends Maximus named Juba, played by G.B.M.H. And I really like the characters throughout the movie, in my opinion. We meet slave owner to become gladiators named Proximo, played in a final performance by Oliver Reed by Maximus. And remember, he had a heart attack when filming his final scenes. Juba and a few others will meet and relate with throughout the movie as they're trained to become gladiators, while Maximus doesn't want to fight these men, as he gets called the Spaniard during these gladiator scenes. And the production design was fantastic, and this may be the best looking movie director Ridley Scott has made in his career, in my opinion. And the costume designing is phenomenal. Maximus, Juba, and others prepare for their first gladiator fight, and they work together and they win the match, and the camera circles around, which is done better than anything Michael fucking Bay does in general. And Commodus makes it back to the palace as emperor, while Lucilla is happy to see Lucius, as Commodus sees Gracchus. I don't know if I'm saying the name right, please forgive me, played by Derek Jacobi, as Commodus comes off like a dick to Gracchus. I'm going to just call him that for the rest of the show. While on his first day as emperor, as he wants to overthrow the Senate, as the stadium is the best visual effects could be throughout the movie. Maximus goes out to fight another gladiator and easily wins the fight, and by killing every single man out there, as he will say the best line of the movie to the audience. Are you not entertained? As this is the best line in the movie. Proximo asks to see Maximus as he learns to talk with him about his past, and Maximus learns Proximo's past as he was a gladiator and advises Maximus to win the crowd. And Maximus says he'll give the people what they've never seen before and gives them the armor of his life. And Maximus talks with Juba about seeing his family ever again. And we get some great shots of the sky as they go to Rome. And Proximo says to Maximus once more, win the crowd. And it's a shame after filming this movie, Oliver Reed passes away as he had a heart attack, as he was great in this movie. Lucilla pours some water with some salt for Commodus, and was she trying to poison him? Because it looked like it, which felt a little weird to me. While Lucilla visits Gracchus and the Senate, as they talk about the games Commodus made up for the gladiators, and people will die. And I don't remember the scene in the theatrical cut, as I believe this was in the director's cut. Or extended cut. I keep forgetting it's an extended cut, in my opinion. Or the weird thing is. And the scenes with the extended cut that makes the movie only 15 minutes longer is not necessary, in my opinion. And we move on to Lucius going up to Maximus the Spaniard. And after their conversation, Maximus learns it's Lucilla's son, and they prepare for battle as they come out and see the stadium is so fucking big, and it's a full house, as the visuals of that scene was phenomenal. Commodus, Lucilla, and Lucius walk out as the gladiators, except for Maximus, say they're about to die to salute you, or something like that. As Maximus says to work together, then they'll survive, as a few of them will get killed, and they become mockable until they knock down a couple of gladiator fighters, and Hagen almost gets killed as Maximus kills the last gladiators while on a horse and kills the last gladiator, and they win the battle. And Commodus comes down to meet the Spaniard, doing along with Lucius, and Maximus almost kills Commodus until Lucius comes out to meet the Spaniard, and he can't in front of the kid as Commodus asks for a name, and Maximus decides to call himself Gladiator. And and then shows his back to Commodus, and he demands him to remove his helmet. And he says, "My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius." And this is the best piece of score. That's my favorite part of the score, by the way. I mentioned earlier that I have a favorite. That was it. My favorite score in the movie, in my opinion, as everybody knows Maximus's name at this point. And the audience wants him to live, and he gives a thumbs up. And fun fact, or maybe it's not a fun fact, but anyways, the thumbs up means kill, or thumbs down means live, which I don't know if that's true. Please forgive me if I said that wrong. Which I found somewhere on a YouTube comment. I'm just don't make it come from me. It's from somebody on YouTube making that up. And I forget wherein people chant Maximus's name, and the acting in this scene was great by Russell Crowe. Commodus is worried Maximus is still alive, while in the extended cut, Commodus splices the head statue of Marcus Aurelius, and suddenly cries as that scene was not necessary. And he asks Lucilla, why is Maximus still alive, as she doesn't know, and Commodus wants Maximus dead. And Lucilla visits Maximus in prison in chains, as Maximus wants to kill Commodus, and what he did to his family, while Lucilla wants to protect Commodus and refuses to listen to Lucilla, and he says to never ever visit him again. And we get another scene in the extended cut. Commodus interrogates the people who didn't kill Maximus face their death. And the extended cut is not necessary, as this movie works better without the extended cuts. Maximus believes his soul that just came in was poisoned, as Hagen pretends to die as he laughs, which was a funny and amusing scene. And we get another gladiator fight with Maximus versus Titrus, I think his name is, as he's a tiger pop. He has a tiger pop up as a secret weapon. And Commodus really wants Maximus dead, as his tricks don't work, and kills two tigers that jumps on him at one point. But Maximus wins the fight, and the audience begs Commodus to give Titrus the thumbs down. But Maximus chooses not to kill Titrus, which is an intense battle for damn sure. Commodus talks with Maximus about how he doesn't just die, and Commodus torments Maximus, but Maximus doesn't kill Commodus quite yet, as that'll come later in the movie, as Maximus bumps into another soldier he used to fight with Maximus, and Commodus is upset not killing Maximus, which will make people hate him more than they might, as some people do hate him. While the soldier gives Lucilla the word Maximus wants to talk in the extended cut, and Maximus talks with Gracchus and Lucilla to tell the soldiers Maximus is alive, and say Gracchus and Lucilla trust Maximus to stay alive and to buy his freedom, which I guess makes sense in the extended cut. Maximus says to Proximo he will kill Commodus while he makes Proximo rich, while Gracchus is taken by the guards to go to Commodus, and Lucilla chats with Commodus and wants to feel comfort, and he lies Lucilla on her back and lays on her, and that's another extended scene that is not necessary. And Proximo releases Maximus and Lucilla, and Gracchus tells him he must leave in the nighttime, as she loved him a long time ago. And I like the scene, but I don't remember Maximus ever kissing Lucilla in the theatrical cut, as that was in the director's cut. Commodus plays briefly with Lucius and spends the day with him, as they read, and Commodus learns something is up with Lucilla, and guards go after Maximus as they burn the gladiator cages, while they demand Proximo to open the door under the name of the emperor. And Juba and Hagen and others stay in their cages until Maximus can free them. And they fight the guards as a bunch of them capture prisoners, and a bunch of kill Proximo, and they kill Hagen, and Maximus gets outside, finding the soldier he fought with is killed, and they capture Maximus, and Commodus asks Lucilla in a shouting line, "Am I not merciful?" Which is a little over the top, but it's good acting by Joaquin Phoenix. Maximus is chained up while the crowd chants Maximus, 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 and Commodus sees Maximus and says the line, "A general who became a slave who became a gladiator," and a gladiator who defied an emperor, and Commodus challenges Maximus as he talks about smiling until Commodus stabs Maximus, and Maximus puts on his armor and fights Commodus with swords at first while Maximus is bleeding, and eventually Maximus slides Commodus' sword away from him, and Commodus asks for a sword, but his bodyguard says, "Seize your swords," and Maximus sees the road his family is at, and Commodus fights Maximus by hand and defeats Commodus and kills him as Maximus opens the door to his death, and family asks the bodyguards to free Maximus's men, and they do as Maximus falls to his death and says to Lucilla, Lucius is safe and dies with a great-looking visual effect. And Maximus makes it to his family in the afterlife, and all the gladiators and soldiers of the emperor pick Maximus up and bury him as Juba buried his family in the ground and the stadium, as the slaves/gladiators are now free thanks to Maximus. And the climax was a great, satisfying story, as this movie is the best of Ridley Scott's career. And is it worthy of Best Picture? Let's find out in a rating, shall we? I'll give this movie a 9.1 out of 10. Russell Crowe is in one of his best performances with this and A Beautiful Mind, and Joaquin Phoenix plays a very good villain. And I really like every single character throughout the movie, and the sound was great throughout, as the score was great to listen to, in my opinion. The production design was fantastic, while the cinematography was excellent. And this may be the best looking movie of director Ridley Scott's career, in my opinion. And the costume designing was phenomenal, while the visual effects are spectacular from start to finish. The writing in this is great, as the editing is tightly edited, and the score had some badass moments, and this is a strong recommendation for this movie. And it still holds up almost 25 years later, and this is a very great movie, as it's easy to follow, and the visual effects is the best it could be, as this is the best Ridley Scott movie has made, in my opinion. But one critique I'll have is, did we need the extended cut of this movie? No, because the theatrical cut was tightly edited compared to the extended cut. And how will the sequel go? As I'll talk about it next time. So I would like to thank you guys for joining me in this long road to Ridley Scott's retrospective. And I will be back with the final round of Gladiator 2. And until then, my name is Gladiator.